One of the biggest problems people have when they first come into kickboxing, especially as they've been doing jiu-jitsu, is how do you stand? Which foot should you put forward? There's really no wrong way. You just have to pick something and stick with it. Most people that come from a striking background, so I'm a righty, I will put my dominant hand in a striking background, back. My right hand will be my back hand, my left hand will be my lead hand, will be in the front. A lot of people that come from a wrestling background or a judo background, if you've been grappling, in jiu-jitsu as well, a lot of people stand with their dominant foot forward. Think about gripping up on the gi. Normally, righties put their right hand forward and they'll step with their right leg forward. And they're used to coming in here because they throw this way. And if your stance has been this way, I say stay with that. I think what's most important is how do you shoot. If you are a grappler and you're used to clinching and shooting, so I started shooting off my left leg. So I can throw a 1-2, change levels and come in and shoot very quickly off there. And I think that's the number one thing if I was going to tell someone to pick a stance is how do you feel comfortable shooting into someone? So that you don't have to throw a strike, change your stance, and then shoot. Not that you can't do that, but I'd rather not have that extra step in there. Number two, when you get into striking for, I'm going to use this line right here, so if you want to back out and just come on the feet here. If you want to use striking for MMA, boxing, kickboxing, one of the things, the first thing I did when I was young, before I got into any of that, I was doing Taekwondo, and I had a hard time because I stood a lot like this when I was sparring. And I had no good lateral stability this way. And so a lot of people, even if they have no striking background, they'll get in here and they'll start throwing jabs. And watch my feet as I jab. This is what I tend to see happen almost all the time in new people. Their stance comes here because as they've thrown a bunch of jabs, it just pulls their body into this position. When you get started, we want you to stand about shoulder width apart with your feet. My left leg is my lead leg, so I'm going to take my right leg and step back, but I'm going to slide it back. One of the things I want to avoid is I don't want to hinge at the hip because it's going to pull my leg right to this line right here. So if I'm shoulder width apart and I have a line, you could take a broomstick. My first boxing coach used to just throw a broomstick right down and say, don't step on the broomstick and have me do all my boxing. But if I stand here and I step back, this is a good position for my feet as we get started. My rear foot, I want the heel to be just slightly off the mat. There's no one angle that is the right angle to be at. I'd say get comfortable with what feels good. I'm sitting about at 45 right now. That feels pretty good to me. But I want my heel off the mat. And one thing I really like about these mats is I can see when people come back and they're throwing from the mat creases underneath the weight of their heel digging into the mat. That shouldn't be happening. I should be on the ball of the back foot. The heel could touch, but I shouldn't have much weight in it. I tell people I like you to think about that you could slip a piece of paper under your heel. That's about the distance. I don't want to be sitting here in stilettos, all right? So from here, the front foot, the heel is on the mat, but the weight is still generally on the ball of the foot. My heel's on the mat, the weight on both legs are on the balls of the feet. As I get into position, I don't want to bend a lot with the knees. The knees are going to be slightly bent, and I'll sit into position here, but I really want to be riding the calves. The calf muscles are what's moving. So as I'm moving in here, it's the calf muscles that are really taking the strain of my weight dropping and springing me forward, backwards, left, or right. I don't want to be moving like this all the time. There are times I change levels here, but the stance should be set on the calves, all right? So again, you're going to have to figure out what feels good for you when you get into a stance. I know that people that fight in the Thai style, Western boxing, Taekwondo, karate, whatever, there are different stances and it's all good. After people learn some basics with what they're doing, I don't really care what they do with their stance. When you start sparring, you see what works for you and what doesn't. There are drawbacks to why we stand in different sports the way we do. One stance might let my leg get kicked too easy with the knee turned in and being back too far. A stance up here in Thai works great for throwing elbows, knees, punches, but it's easy to get shot and taken down because you're up high. You're going to have to play with what works for you. But when people first start off, I'm more concerned that they at least just get into a strong position in here. And so if you go over all the strikes we did and you're throwing and you start moving, as long as you make sure you're not doing this and just stepping back on a line. Again, a broomstick or something, you should get a stick and throw it down when you're practicing. It will help you a lot if you find your feet moving where you don't want them to move. All right, hope you enjoy this. Thanks, guys.